United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I start to move the agenda table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, seconded by Ms. Maloney. Corrections, additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda? That passes 7-0. And before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to apologize. Earlier this month in our public comment session at the meeting, during public comments, at least one or two different speakers made mention of employees or past employees of the district, Dr. Kathy Colicchio and an assistant principal, Noel Breedlove. I'd like to apologize to both those individuals. They shouldn't have been named. I should have cut the speaker off, and for that, it was my fault, and I apologize to both of them. With that, we'll move on to the student leader comments from Arcadia. Welcome this evening.
High School. I'm here with my good friend Saf Matlick.
Well, Fabi, there is a lot going on over at Arcadia at the moment. A lot of students and staff have been working hard all year to build a culture of excellence over in our building. Every day, the whole building starts our day with home base. During home base, we have a crew where we produce essentially a live morning show. We live stream every morning. And it's like our version of the Today Show, where we fill our students in. Rather than morning announcements every morning, we get our students to collaborate and give a live stream every morning to each other, for each other. We have a crew of about 30 students who participate in a variety of ways to make sure the school community knows what's going on around the Titan territory.
Thank you, Seth. Let's go to Molly for a little more info on Titan TV.
Thank you, Molly. I'm Damaris, and I am a regular host on Titan TV, as well as I just played the role of Jack's mom in our recent production of Into the Woods. One of the things we do on a regular basis is help Mrs. Wozniak recognize some terrific Titans during her What's Up with Wozniak segment on Titan TV. Every week, she surprises one staff member and one student with a Terrific Titan award. We film this for her and create a segment that is then aired on our show for the whole building to see. We've included links to a few of these in the presentation that you can view at your leisure. Next up, I'm going to bring Seth and Fabi back up with me so we can talk a little bit about Arcadia Music and Theater and our recent production of Into the Woods.
Thank you, Damaris. I played the role of the Wolf and the Prince in our recent production of Into the Woods, and our crew over at Arcadia, our theater department, has actually won 2 back-to-back awards for Best Production from the annual Stars of Tomorrow competition. It's been an amazing experience for me over the last 2 years, and Fabi for the last 3, yes? Being a part of that family over at Arcadia. And I guess, can you just tell me a little bit more about the Stars of Tomorrow program?
Yeah, of course. So for those who don't know, Stars of Tomorrow is a program that is hosted by the Rochester Broadway Theater League, which celebrates teamwork and talent and growth and discipline in the theater communities here in Monroe County and the other counties too, the ones that surround. The schools that participate in Stars of Tomorrow, they are evaluated by people called adjudicators who then write feedback towards the cast and the directors about the performance. And, excuse me. They write their feedback based on how the cast treats acting and vocal work and safety and other categories. And the schools with the highest scores in each category are given something called recognition by the RBTL, and it's just a very, very wonderful thing to experience. And also, each school is given a chance to send students out to something called Stars of Tomorrow NYC Bound, which is a chance for those students to represent Rochester at the Jimmy Awards.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the Jimmy Awards?
Yeah, of course. They're like the Tony Awards for musical theater, except for high schoolers. And I'd like to use an example of our friend Ian Royce, who isn't here with us tonight, but he not only with his help did we win 2 Best Production of the Years, but he also did win the Jimmy Awards and went to New York City and shake Josh Groban's hand. And
He did not win the Jimmy Awards, but he did win NYC Bound.
I'm sorry, I'd like to correct myself. He did not win the Jimmy Awards, but he did win NYC Bound. So, very
Thank you,
exciting for all
Fabi.
of us.
Not only over at Arcadia do we have a morning news show, but we also have a student-run newspaper. Here is Jin, who has a little bit more about the Titan Times.
So the Titan Times is their very own student-run newspaper here at Arcadia. Everything is done by students, from writing to layout to publishing. Every month, the writers draft up an article about whatever they fancy. Sometimes they find that they enjoy writing about a certain topic, and then that kind of just becomes a section in the newspaper every single edition. Then our student editors take a look and work their magic for publication. Of course, no newspaper would be complete without games. We have crosswords, word searches, sudokus, ginger notes, and even coloring pages. Being part of Titan Times has been a spectacular experience. I've enjoyed interviewing and writing about Ms. Groutman's retirement and even welcoming our new superintendent, Mr. Smalley.
Thank you, Nikki. Next we have to tell you about excellence in the Arcadia Math Team that been out this year.
The math team has been on the roll this year, and I am so proud of everyone. Every month after school, we compete against each other and other schools in the same division and score in 2 rounds. First, we start off with a team round and then individual rounds. There are a wide variety of topics each month, such as quadratics, complex numbers, and creative problem solving. Then the score is decided by adding the team points and the 4 top individual scores. During our February meet, we won Division II with a score of 36 points. This Thursday, we will be heading out to Nazareth University to compete in the county meet.
To wrap things up, I am going to send you back to Fabi for another excellent addition to Titan territory. That is just getting started.
Thank you, Nikki and Jin. Not only does Arcadia have a morning show and a newspaper, they're about to have a new student-ran restaurant. And I'm here with everyone's favorite Titan, our culinary teacher, Mr. Carlson. Now, Mr. Carlson, can you share a bit about what's on the horizon for our culinary students?
Sure. So we actually, great news. We were just certified as a business over in the Arcadia Culinary Room. So we are open for business. And we actually had our first event tonight. We we catered the basketball program's end of year banquet. We actually took a break just to come over and see you guys for that. And we have a lot of great stuff going on. There'll be events, there'll be pop-up restaurants held in the culinary room, and we even have a great internship program that we partnered with Wegmans that just jumped off. This is our first member of that club, Jonathan. Want to talk about that? Just from the hip. From the hip.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. So, as Mr. Carlson said, I am the first student to be doing the Wegmans internship program, and it's a program where they hire students from schools, and then they try to put the student into the work area, I want to say, and then they train the student, make sure the student's very comfortable with the job, and they would like to get it to where the student's able to be in the food area with working with food, but they bounce from different sections, but they're still working towards that. So as of now, I work in the sub shop with the Wegmans on Ladder Road, and I just started there a couple of weeks ago. I would say it's a really good program. The people at Wegmans are extremely nice. They're very friendly, and it's a great atmosphere and a good environment, I want to say. Sorry. Thank you.
Perfect. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Recently, you had an event to celebrate Black History Month, Taste of Soul. What was that all about?
We partnered with community schools, and we put on a Black History Month celebration, did some food in the culinary room. We're lucky enough that multiple times a year we can pair up with different groups and celebrate through food. Students make it, and then students get to enjoy it.
That's just awesome. Now, we have some breaking news, and I'm wondering if you can confirm. Do you have something to share with the board? Maybe a little treat?
Yep, so the students this week have been working hard. One of the dishes we made was we made some fresh pasta and made a lasagna bolognese bechamel. And we also made some rosemary sea salt focaccia. And they are going to be coming around. If anybody has a gluten or a dairy allergy, I apologize. It might not be for you, but hopefully you can enjoy a little snack courtesy of the kids.
Yeah. Please enjoy the food. Now back to Christian and Molly to wrap things up.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed your little peek at all the excellent things happening at Arcadia. There are more, but I'm sure I have already gone over our allotted time. Thank you for taking the time to listen with us.
We know you want more, so embedded in this slideshow are video links to many things we have highlighted, or there are video links to many of the things that we have highlighted here today. So we hope you take some time to review them and discover what it means to be a Titan.
That's all we have for you tonight. We hope you enjoy the food provided by our culinary students and have an amazing evening. Go Titans!
Thank you, guys. If you could come up and we'll do a picture with the board, that'd be great.
It's really good.
thank you all very much for coming. It's much appreciated. Thank you for the wonderful food. I got to keep Superintendent Smallene away from my lasagna. Hello, Mr. Butler. Welcome this evening. All right, just a note, as you can see, Board Member Butler is joining remotely. Maybe not, you don't see that. And Mr. Maloney is excused this evening. Moving on to staffing, can I have somebody move the staffing to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stetzel, seconded by Mr. Bongorio. Any comments, questions, concerns on staffing? Seeing none, all those in favor? Mr. Butler, can you hear me? All right, that's going to pass 7-0. Assistant Superintendent Larson.
Thank you so much. I'm pleased this evening to welcome our new assistant principal for Odyssey Academy, Kenesha Campbell. Kenesha Campbell is an experienced educator with over 16 years of dedication to student success and academic excellence. She holds a bachelor's degree in elementary education, a master's degree in literacy, and a master's degree in integrating technology in the classroom. Kenesha also completed advanced studies in educational administration and is currently pursuing coursework in curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Before joining Greece Central School District, Kenesha served as an educator in the Rochester City School District for 16 years, teaching grades 3 through 6, and spent an additional 1.5 years teaching 5th grade in East Arundecoit School District. Kenesha's favorite part as an educator is building meaningful relationships with students and helping them grow both academically and socially. She is passionate about creating safe spaces where students feel valued and supported. Kenesha is excited to collaborate with teachers, staff, families, and students in Greece to promote a strong, inclusive, and collaborative school culture. She values teamwork and is dedicated to working collectively to meet the diverse needs of all learners. Outside of her work, Kenesha finds joy in working out, reading, and singing. She is a proud member of the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Zeta Zeta chapter and serves on her church's praise and worship team, sharing her love of music and faith. Most importantly, she treasures spending quality time with her family, including her 2 teenagers, Chrisette and Christopher Campbell, who are her greatest inspiration and motivation. They remind her daily of the importance of showing up wholeheartedly for the students and community she serves. Welcome to Greece.
And now it's picture time. We'll have you do a picture. You were trying to get away there. I saw you trying to escape. That doesn't work. We'll have Dr. Zaffitz, Superintendent Smallene, and Deputy Superintendent Fleming. All right, moving on to 2.02, GTA MOA student teacher stipend. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stetzel, seconded by Ms. Malore. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Mr. Butler, can you hear us yet or no? Swing and a miss. That passes 7-0.
Is our volume on?
Nope, you're good. You know. Moving on to 2.03, non-unit rate sheet updates. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Lake, second by Mr. Stenzel. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Mr. Butler? Nope, 7-0. All right, moving on, 4.01, recruitment, hiring, and retention. Superintendent Smalley.
All right, good evening. I would like to ask Ms. Gina Larson and her team to come forward for a presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if I should wait for it to pop up. I've got a great presentation in front of me. Secrets, though. There we go. Perfect. So thank you for having us tonight. I'm very pleased to be sharing the podium this evening with two of my teammates, Jennifer Hendrickson, our Executive Director, and Julie Riley, our Assistant Director over in Human Resources. So we're excited to share some of the things going on in the Department of Human Resources in the area of recruitment, hiring, and retention. So as you know, this is one of the strategic plan key focus areas and really the center of our work in human resources. Tonight, I want to share a little bit more about what the Department of Human Resources does and give you some very specific examples of how this plays out throughout the district throughout the year. So to start off, this is a very, very brief overview of what our department does. So as you can see, we're a fairly small department as compared to the size of the district. So we're 16 people within the department, and we manage recruitment, hiring, onboarding, and benefits for 3,200 employees and an additional 600 retirees. We have 8 bargaining units, plus we have non-unit employees. We work on hiring, terminations, leaves of absence, certification management, tenure, and lots of celebrations. Labor management and negotiations is a big portion of time that we spend not only in labor management meetings, but between labor management meetings and while contracts are being negotiated. We manage the benefits for all of our employees and retirees, including health insurance, their entitlements, life insurance, et cetera. We do your lovely board staffing reporting, as well as tenure reporting and other information that the board requests. And then we work a lot in documentation. So we work with our leaders to make sure that any incidents are documented and that feedback and coaching is an ongoing part of their work. I'm going to turn it over to Julie to take us through a couple things.
Sure. As Gina mentioned, we're giving a brief portion of our department today. So this is a little bit of our staffing and hiring timeline, but our full timeline actually includes over 150 items. So we're very busy throughout the whole year. But this snapshot really just is to show you that we are continually working on our staffing process throughout the whole year. Our 2 biggest drivers for our staffing timeline, you'll see in red. In January, the course selection by the students in the high schools drives our staffing because we do staff to actuals to be fiscally responsible for the district. And then in March, the final numbers due to finance is our ending point because that's the information that Romeo needs for his budget purposes. One of the things that I do want to outline on here on our timeline is if you go through the items, you'll see that we work collaboratively with a lot of different departments. So we meet with each building principal. For secondary principals, we meet with them 3 times. That's really to ensure that we are hearing student voice and as well as the leadership voice of what they're really advocating to run. We look at staffing numbers to make sure that we aren't running classes with 6 kids in it, but we really want to make sure that we can run the classes that the students want. So we work through those 3 rounds to make sure that we're moving kids within courses, co-seating where possible, traveling where possible to make sure that our students are getting the classes that they want.
So I know we've shared some daunting statistics in the past about the teacher hiring shortage that the whole country is really amidst right now. But part of our daily work is really working on recruiting, hiring, and retention. We've kind of coined the phrase early intervention recruitment. All of these images that you see on the screen up here are efforts that we're putting towards student teachers that are currently in our district. We've been really trying to amp that up because we want them in our district to fall in love with Greece. We do a welcome reception when they first come. Their GTA counterpart, most of the time when they're available, they come with them. It's a great introduction to what the district has to offer. And then at the end of the semester, we do an exit celebration. Again, GTA partners with us on that. We provide exit screening interviews. We provide opportunities to give them feedback on resumes and cover letters, walk them through the different benefits that our contract has to offer, and really try to sell Greece as a place for them to come.
These images on this slide are from that exit celebration. Again, those are GTA members working side by side with different student teachers. And we want to say a quick thank you to the board for approving the MOA. I have some very exciting data to share with you that has really helped amp up and beef up our process. So Greece teachers ended up hosting 195 student teachers this school year. That is up from only 59 in the previous school year, so a 229% increase just in the student teachers that we hosted since the MOA went into effect. So thank you for supporting that effort. Another piece of really noteworthy data, especially because it speaks volumes about our GTA members, is in addition to the 194 student teachers, they also hosted 165 field placements. There is no compensation for them for that. They're doing that out of the goodness of their own heart because they care about the profession and want to help it grow. So kudos to GTA for really coming and stepping up. We had overall over 359 placements. That's 359 potential candidates walking in and working in our buildings. That was up from 106 last year, so a 239% increase in the number of college students that are really close to being employable walking through our doors. And again, all of these events that we do are all in an effort to get them to come to Greece, experience the amazingness that happens, and stay in Greece and apply here.
All right, so along with our postings that are going up throughout the week, most of the time daily, we are posting some kind of position. We send emails out to all of our supervisors with those postings each day, and those are posted and communicated with staff. We also put all of our postings on our Human Resources Twitter page so that we are reaching out to people in as many ways as possible. One of the things we've had a lot of luck with is our recruitment events. So these are some flyers that we've used on the support or non-instructional side of the house for events. Every year we do a support event in October mostly for special ed support positions is the focus. And then in April, we work on our teachers, but we've also had other events focusing solely on school nurses. We had a bus driver one, we've had food service. So we're just working continually to have those opportunities to have face-to-face interactions with the community. Another event that we tied into was the December Level Up vote. We actually put a table up and we talked to people as they were coming through to vote. So just any chance that we have to talk to people about positions, we try to grasp at. On the instructional side, these two flyers, the one on the left was one that we used for the April event. So we do have this event that we're going to be doing again this April. So we will be doing that and starting to advertise for that. That's going to be April 9th. We work with our staff, so the GASA staff really help us to put on that. We also work with parent volunteers to come in and help us with the interviews and get their voice on applicants as well. On the right-hand side, there is a postcard that was printed out this year. We sent that to our staff, and this was put in all of the GTA members' mailboxes to give to either student teachers, community members, anybody that they thought might be a good fit for substitute teaching, which is obviously a high need for us. You'll see it has a barcode on there, so we have tried to put these little QR codes on all of our flyers just to make it more accessible and easy for people to get to our postings.
All right, in the area of staff retention, we want to make sure that we're keeping the valuable employees that we have, so we continue to continue to focus on choice, voice, and growth. We are continuing to improve our labor management practices to ensure that we have positive relationships which allow for better negotiations and stronger contracts. We offer mentoring opportunities as well as career ladder opportunities to our employees who are interested in growing either within their role or within the district. We currently have 38 instructional administrators who opted for mentoring or leadership coaching, which was obviously optional for them. Additionally, we have another 35 leaders on the non-instructional side who are participating in leadership development. So we're really excited about that. And as we've mentioned a couple of times, we believe in celebrating our milestones like tenure, years of service, and retirement, and making sure that our employees really feel honored and appreciated. Another big part of retention is keeping good labor management relationships and offering great contracts. Labor management meetings are monthly, as I mentioned at the beginning, with the goal being to solve problems, clarify contract language, and when necessary, bring forward MOAs for approval. However, most of the work of labor management happens between meetings. So it's a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of check-ins. One of the three of us checks in with every union leader at some point every single week. And it's not always to solve a problem. Sometimes it's really just to check in and, check up on things that are going on. In addition to labor management, we have active negotiations. Right now, for the next few years, we'll have at least 3 contracts that need to be negotiated every single year. This year, we have GUS, food service, and the facilities, central office secretaries, and LPN contracts. Those are the ones that are highlighted with stars on this slide. And next year, we'll have GTA, GASA, and transportation, and those ones are noted with an arrow. Each contract takes between 3 to 6 months to negotiate with a collective team of 10 to 15 people, and with the goal of having board approval prior to the end of that contract. So it's a lot of work that happens. Sometimes we're overlapping with different groups, and we've got a lot of negotiations going on at a time. So it is a lot of work, but again, very meaningful work for our employees. We also work very hard to create a team atmosphere, and we truly believe that working with the union rather than in opposition to them is the best way to keep our employees' interests and the district's interests at heart. So we work really hard on doing that. One of the benefits that is not talked about enough is our employee assistance program. Our carrier just changed names. It is now Bree Health. And it offers a variety of free supports to our employees and their family. Last year, we had 146 employees use the services available, and they used those services over 1,800 times. So although it's a small portion of employees that are accessing it, we would love for that number to go up. Their use is quite a bit, so we're pleased with that. Information regarding these services is shared with employees when they come in for in-processing. It's also periodically shared through the instructional newsletter, our principal newsletters, and sometimes with just direct emails from Human Resources. EAP is also a tool that's used when handling personnel issues. As you know, sometimes things happen at work because of something that's going on outside of work. So we want to make sure that we are supporting our employees that need support so that we can retain them. And, if there is a behavior problem, we look to correct that and move forward in a supportive way.
Before I talk about this slide, one thing I wanted to mention and forgot about the GTA student teaching stipend, that we are going to be tracking who we hire, who was placed in Greece. So be on the lookout this fall. We'll definitely have some data for you after we go through this hiring season to be able to keep you up to date as to whether or not the MOA is really effective. It's effective in getting people here, but are they staying? So more to come on that. This slide makes me very proud. So we have over 35 operational or non-instructional leaders that have been choosing to participate in professional growth for themselves. So often on the operational side of the house, leaders are promoted into those leadership positions because they are great at their job, not necessarily because they went to school to become a leader or exhibited leadership characteristics. And we've been finding that they have been really hungry for professional development. So this program has allowed us to have many different opportunities to engage together as an operational leadership group. We've done the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People together, so almost all of them have gone through that training, so the same training that their instructional counterparts have gone through. We've engaged in foundational leadership development aligned with all of the different words that are listed on this screen. And we were able to take a group of leaders to the Global Leadership Summit, which we'll also go to again this summer. These leaders are setting wigs and tracking goals, and it is amazing to watch them do the exact same things that their instructional counterparts are doing. Earlier in this month, the operational leaders were together for a full day of professional development, and we kicked off with a team building activity that was actually planned by 3 of the operational leaders, and it was called 2-Lane Leadership Challenge. The focus was all about building trust, having effective communication, doing the activity with integrity, and they had to show some courage to get up and do it. So there was video footage that we just couldn't keep to ourselves. So we're going to share a tiny little compilation of the 2-lane leadership challenge. Maybe. Try one more time. If it doesn't work, we'll send it to you. All right, well, that was kind of anticlimactic, but we will send you the presentation so that you can access the link. They worked so hard and they had so much fun, and it was really amazing to see these leaders come together and really team build with each other. So we have gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback from not only the leaders themselves, but from others who are their subordinates, their employees that are working with them every day, that have noticed the strengthening of their own leadership. And that just goes to that huge retention piece, that when people are here, we want to keep them here, and we need to keep them happy and invest in their development. So we have a lot planned or already planning for next year, and it's really just been a great group of people to work with.
All right, we also like to party in our department. So the next couple of slides, we'll talk about the celebrations that we put on. So on this slide right here, on the left side, you'll see the information about our tenure celebration. So we do this every year at the end of the year. Last spring, we celebrated 59 people who received tenure over the course of the school year. And this year, we are anticipating right now that there will be 68 people that we celebrate on May 21st. So that's a really exciting time for people. They come, they bring their families, and it's just really nice to celebrate. And it's also nice to see the amount of staff that come out to support them as well. On the right-hand side is the information about years of service recognition. So we do this each school year. At the end of the school year, we send out to certificates to all of the supervisors for their staff. We celebrate years of service in 5-year increments, starting with 10 years. So you'll see last year we celebrated 319 employees, and right now we're on track to celebrate 330. So that's a really exciting thing for people. They're able to put their certificates up in their office. They celebrate with their departments, and it's just an exciting time and something fun to do with staff. It's also really interesting to see how long people have been here. Like you'll see this year we're celebrating 2 people with over 50 years of service in our district, which is really awesome. And then one of our favorite events is our celebration and recognition of our retirees. So it's obviously a sad time to be losing employees, but it's a very exciting time in their life, and we love to celebrate. So this is something that we put on with collaboration of district employees and also the students who come in and help provide music. We do snacks and hors d'oeuvres, and we celebrate our retirees. They bring their families with them. Last year, we celebrated 56 employees who retired, and their years of service totaled over 1,257 years, which is really cool. So right now, we're on track for 40 GTA retirees and a total of 69 total employees. So we have even more this year that we'll be looking to celebrate.
That is it. So we are ready for your questions.
Mr. Butler, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you very much for the presentation. Assistant Superintendent Larson, thank you for your thoughtful replies to the questions that I sent before the meeting. It was very helpful. I want to say I think the focus on retaining student teachers is a great idea, very effective, I think, and I think we're going to see great results from that. So I was very happy to hear those promising statistics that you shared. I've got 2 ideas and then 2 questions, and just given the awkwardness of a virtual attendee, I'll throw them all out at once. And we've got a great communications team at the district, and so I'm guessing you work with them closely on the communications and things. So forgive me for sticking my nose in with suggestions in that area, but my two suggestions are this. All those great flyers and everything that you shared, I think are really eye-catching. One thing I think that might make them more eye-catching is if we put actual photos of our people in them. People are there's a lot of research in the advertising world that people's eyes are attracted to the human face more than anything else. So if we put the faces of our people in those, I think there's a good chance that they'll help people picture themselves in our district. Another suggestion is around highlighting our staff and teacher accomplishments in our social media. We have great following on social media, and I think regularly, whether it's one post a month or something like that, some regular posting highlighting staff and teachers tells people in other districts that that we value our people and they're doing great things. It also says that if we're featuring staff, not just teachers, it'll also help people realize that there's other jobs than teaching in school districts. So then lastly, I have two questions. One thing, there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about surveys, and I just wondered if we're thinking about including staff in our survey. I think, you gave a lot of information about what motivates retention, and I think we could test some of those things in a survey, not just with teachers, but also with staff, because I know staff retention is a big issue as well. And lastly, I wonder if we've thought about the idea of developing a wildly important goal for the HR department.
Nice, great question. So as far as the staff surveys go, we have been working since, I would say, the beginning of last year to teach leaders the process of stay interviews. So it feels really weird to talk to somebody who's not here. With the stay interviews, that is current employees, it's a one-on-one, a check-in, what brings you to work every day, what excites you about the work, what keeps you here, so that we can keep some of those great things going. And it allows us to gather themes of what things aren't so great versus, what are the things that are really keeping people here. But I would say that's not every single employee. So I like the idea of looking for something more that's specific to retention for our staff. We'll need to think a little bit more about the timing of that so that we're not surveying people to death. But I do like the idea of asking those really specific, direct questions. So I think that's a good plan. And for the wildly important goals, that's something that my team will be working on over the summer and into next year. Not only just for our leadership group, there's 5 of us, but for the entire department, and taking what our regular goals are and turning them into WIGs. So we are looking at that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you. Moving on to 25-26 budget update, Superintendent Smalley.
Good evening, and I'd like Mr. Romeo Kalili to come up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just one shout out to HR. The non-instructional department's professional development that's been arranged by the HR department, organized by Jen, has been fantastic. It's been so well received by our folks. As she mentioned, they're eager for it. They're looking for more of it, and we've seen a difference just in kind of the stand-upness, I guess you would call it, within the departments. A lot more confidence, a lot more confidence in what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how to lead those initiatives. So again, thank you for doing that. Tonight, we're going to spend a couple minutes just talking about the budget update. Last time we did this was back in February 4th. We wanted to bring you up to date as to where we currently stand and how we've gotten there. So before we move on from the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what the state aid adjustment was at this current time, budget adjustments since our last meeting when we updated the board, and then share a draft budget summary of where we sit as it sits this evening. And before we move on, I do want to also do a shout out and a thank you and a kudos to our budget team led by Janine Cushman. They're working on this every single day since February 4th, trying to get things in place, making sure they're right, having conversations. It's a lot of work, and this is a summary of where we are as of right now. So on February 4th, we shared with the board an initial budget, initial rollover in a budget. We showed revenue increases of about 3%. We had expenditures at the time at a roughly about a 5% increase, and a result of that showed a gap at about $5.8, $5.9 million, where our revenues to meet all those expenditures were short about $5.8 million. In that expenditure number, just as kind of a refresher, we put all staffing, all contracts, negotiations, and contract commitments were included. All extra work time was estimated, overtime, substitute teacher and staff costs, student needs, increases in student needs, other supports for students, equipment, supply budgets, BOCES increase, benefit, everything was in that number. And what we said at the time is that we would go back and review our BOCES contracts in details, review our staffing in detail, review vacancies in other areas and other contingent areas in the budget to see where we could either gather more revenues or shrink down some of the expenditure sides, and that's what we've done. First item to note, we met on Tuesday, February 4th. We had our meeting with our financial partners on that Thursday, February 6th, so we didn't know what the update would be, but we're sharing it here this evening. Previously, we showed you the first three columns on February 4th, where we were with the executive budget and what our state aid would be. The governor's budget was somewhere around $167.2 million based on that column 2. An increase of about 5.4% or about $8.5 million. We met with our financial partners, and one thing that they're really good at is reconciling and kind of taking a better look at each state aid item to see where adjustments could be made. And the one highlighted item is on building aid. The governor's budget is based on a November database run. They pull information as of November. She prepares her budget based on those numbers. In December, by the end of December of last year, we submitted a bunch of final cost reports which will generate building aid. Those were not taken in consideration in the governor's budget, but our financial partners have taken those into consideration and reconciled them. So the only adjustment we're making at this time is we're going to increase the building aid adjustment from the governor's budget of just over $10 million to a new number of $11.2 million, which would increase our revenues about $1.2 million. So our new number at this point in time is the circled number at the bottom of $168.4 million that we will use for state aid. That number could change again because we're anticipating that the legislative budget will be out hopefully in the next week, but it could be closer to the end of the month. We'll see where that goes. But right now we're using 168.5 as our state aid number for this budget. Just kind of walking us through briefly as to where we were. Revenues on the left-hand side, expenses on the right. February 4th, you could see we had the gap of about $5.9 million. You can see those items those from last year's budget for 24-25, revenues that we added at the time, and expenditures that we added and other adjustments that we made. That brought us to $322.9 million. Picking it up from February 4th to where we are today, on the revenue side, again, we just reviewed, we added $1,191,000 to building aid. We firmed up our tax levy, tax cap calculation, submitted that generated roughly $30,000 more, so we were close. And our debt service reserve amount, coming over from the debt service fund, went up $237,000. So that took us from revenues of $317 million on February 4th to $318.5 million as of this evening. On the expenditure side, we made several adjustments. We were at almost $323,000. We had some additional staffing adjustments to make. Most of those were in support of student needs, and those will be discussed and kind of shared and finalized when we do the next presentation. Staffing adjustments were about $1.3 million. Healthcare, we reduced about $1.2 million. We were able to do that because in our healthcare number, we build in some contingency. When open enrollment comes around from November, December into January, the rates change. People could be switching from single coverage to two-person coverage to family coverage. We build in a little bit of contingency to cover that risk. We've reduced that contingency a little bit, so there's a little more risk to us, but we don't think it's going to cause us any issues. But we reduced healthcare $1.2 million. You see a number here for $1.6 million reduction retiree breakage. As Gina had mentioned, we have right now 40 GTA retirees. We take breakage on those 40. So those folks, those 40 people have been here a long time. They're going out at a higher salary. We'll be replacing them with somebody with a lower salary. That difference in salaries is what we refer to as breakage in the replacement of the position, and we're estimating that there'd be a savings of about $1.6 million. Our debt service adjustment, again, was a reduction by $1.1 million. That was confirmed with our financial partners, so that's a solid number. BOCES was reduced a little bit by $313,000 after further review. And then in the benefits side, we also made some adjustments to about $2 million for TRS, Teacher Retirement System, Employee Retirement System, and FICA, and Social Security. Again, we build in cushion there a little bit, and we've reduced that down. And that cushion's there because if a grant were to be decreased, those positions need to be picked up, and those costs need to be picked up in the general fund. Or if we add new positions, we've got to pick that up in the general fund. So we build a little contingency in these items. We've reduced those contingencies, but again, we don't believe it'll be problematic for us. When we sum all those up, you can see our revenues go up about $10.7 million. It's almost a 3.5% increase, which I don't think is unreasonable here, budget to budget increase. CPI was somewhere around 3 to 3.132%. Our salaries number, which is our biggest increase here, is salaries and benefits are dictated, by contracts. Most of our contracts have salary increases of roughly 3 to 3.5%. Those are all factored in here. So 3.5% budget to budget increase is very similar to what CPI has been for this past year. On the expense side, you can just see we've talked to most of these items. Again, 3.5% increase budget to budget. As of this evening, we are balanced, and we're comfortable with that. Again, these numbers could change pending a receipt of the state aid numbers and whatever else the governor or the legislative budget may dictate to us. Whatever those changes are, we will bring them back next board meeting and do a separate, maybe mini presentation before the superintendent does a final presentation on the recommended budget for next year. Kind of looking at this a little bit differently, we've included this slide the last couple times just to kind of show where the changes are. Your packet might updated this a little bit, so there's a couple different formatting items on here. But we start to the far left with the 24-25 budget of about $307.8 million. The items cascading up and coming down are the items that have changed in the budget to land at our new budget of $318.5 million at this point. The categories where the increases are along the bottom. And one point that made on the note, If you look at the first two categories, salaries and wages, and health, dental premiums, and other benefits, it's about 8.5 of that $10.7 million increase is related to staff costs and benefits, which is roughly almost 80% of the increase is reduced down to staffing and benefits, again, somewhat dictated by contracts. And in healthcare, you know, our increase for healthcare out of the RASP is like 14.5, 15%. That's built in here. We anticipate that that's probably going to be close to true for next year as well. So the point here is most of our increases are really restricted down to staffing and benefit costs, which were either restricted by contracts or restricted by some factors outside our control, the rash, the environment, other things that are dictated to us. Overall, our draft summary budget, $318.5 million, up $10.7 million, or just under 3.5%. Our estimated tax levy is $128 million. It's up almost 2.6 million, or just over 2% increase in the tax levy for our residents. Next steps, we're hoping to get our legislative budget before April 1st. That's when it's due. Fingers crossed. Our revenue budget is likely to change as a result. Same thing with maybe our expenditure budget. And whatever those changes are, again, we'll bring them back here on April 1st prior to the superintendent's recommended budget to the board.
I'll start with you, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation, Romeo, and to Jean and everybody on the team. I know how much work this is. I have two questions. I'll give you both of them. The first, very small, on page 5, I noticed a decrease in the state aid for the charter transition, and I wondered if that's sort of an expected transition over time, or if that is a formula change from the state, or the number of students we've got going to charters is smaller. So I know it's small, but if it is a formula change, it may be an advocacy opportunity for us with New York State. And then my second is around the potential risk of things we're hearing about regularly in the news about cuts to things like school lunch aid from the federal government, and so on. And I saw that we've only got a line item of about $450,000 in revenue, so it's not a huge amount as compared to our overall budget. But I know also some state dollars originate with the federal government, so I just wondered if maybe there's greater risk around some of those things that have been talked about lately. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you. First, let's do the charter school. On page 5, Mr. Butler, you're referring to the $700,000 increase. You referred to the page. I'm just trying to note where.
Well, under other, charter school transition is down like 15%. It's only $50,000, but
yeah,
I'm seeing
that has been generally kind of formula driven and passed on to us either based on enrollment, number of FTEs, and the dollar cost that we spend for the year. You have to be over a certain threshold, I believe, to get the charter school transition funding. And again, it's dollars in volume that generate it. We don't do a lot with it, but it is just dictated to us.
Okay, I was just wondering if the state was cutting back, if we've got costs associated with having students go out to charters in our district, and the state is cutting back the amount that they're reimbursing us for those costs.
I'm not aware of that. It has not come up in any of the literature that we've talked about or that we've read in terms of changes being made or proposed in the House or the Senate. Charter school transition or charter school enrollment or charter school transition has not been discussed or proposed at all. So I think it's the same formula that has been running in past years. It just changes for us by between probably $50,000 and $150,000 depending on the year.
Thank you.
In terms of potential cuts in the risk, we've talked a lot about that in our discussions. The couple areas, big areas, would be the categorical grants that could be impacted, Title I, IDEA, the titles in general, IDEA, food service would be another one. From everything that I've read, if there were cuts, the categoricals seem to be something that is less likely to be cut. It may be more along the competitive and those type of block grants that are out there. If there were some changes to the title grants, some reductions in there, we would have to make some decisions because most of those grants have positions in them. We would have to make decisions on whether we bring those back and increase the budget through an amendment, or can we bring positions back into the general fund. We do have a little bit of a hedge within the budget because there's always going to be vacancies that we could bring from title and IDEA. I don't see that as a huge risk, but it's there. In terms of the other one that could impact us would be child nutrition. So universal school meals, if there were cuts there, we could see an impact. I've looked into this a little bit. If we wished to continue, if there were cuts that impacted our free meals for everyone in our building, our schools, we could come back to the board and ask for a resolution, whatever that difference is, ask for a resolution to be passed by the board to move general fund dollars to the food service program to cover that gap and still provide free meals to our kids when we wish. So that risk is probably a little bit greater than, say, the title and the IDA risks that we have, but not that much more. But either way, we're prepared to handle any of those.
Thanks, Romeo.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Vice President Farmer.
Thank you. Thank you, Romeo. Question, I know you've covered this before. Are we paying the charter schools quarterly, yearly, then the money comes back? How does all that work? And do we have data in terms of how many kids end up coming back from the charter schools, what that does in terms of staffing, room in the classrooms, those kinds of things that could affect, the whole configuration of a grade level or several grade levels, depending on how many people go back and forth. So I'm not expecting to see the data from you or tonight, but I'm just, do we have it? And does it cause, an unevenness sometimes?
I'll start from the first question. Charter schools can bill us monthly, quarterly, periodically throughout the year. We spend $3.5–4 million, maybe more, close to $5. That number 10 years ago was probably a few $100,000. We track each individual because they have to bill us. They have to provide us the names of the kids that are Greece residents that are going to a charter school elsewhere. So we have all that information. We know exactly year to year how many students and FTEs we have. We have that data. In terms of which kids are leaving us and coming back, we don't see that side of it. We know that at the beginning of the year, we may have had 100 kids go to a charter school, and at the end of the year, there were only 89 at that school that we paid for charter, but we just don't know who those 11 were without really digging in and finding out, did they come back to us? Did they go to another charter? Did they move out of the state? So we have some of that data. In terms of impacting us, that number has just been going up each year and pretty significantly to the tune of a few $100,000 to $500,000 to $1.5 million, $2.5 million, every year. So it is an impact. When they come back, and maybe Janine can help me out, I don't see that they're coming back in droves where it's causing a huge problem, at least from our end of it, within the classroom, where all of a sudden you've got 15 new kids coming into a specific grade. They're spread throughout 17 buildings and classrooms throughout the district, so I think they get accommodated and absorbed pretty quickly. But as far as the needs for those kids when they come back and what impact that might have, that may cause other dominoes and other things to have to go in place that weren't there at the beginning of the year, I'm not certain what those are.
Anybody else first before? All right, go ahead.
So, thank you for adding that last sentence. So we typically understand that if kids are leaving charter schools, it's for reasons that could be lack of academic success, the idea that charters want to keep their test scores up high, so they're going to usher out kids who are not making the grade, if you will. I'm not sure, and you said, where do we see that data, but it would typically seem that kids may come back because they are not receiving the services afforded to them by the IDEA Act because of whatever multitude of reasons it is. So when they come back, kids who are IEPs or needing extra help, we then need to increase the number of staff that are working with these kids, whether it means a teacher ends up with another kid in their classroom, or we have larger groups for speech therapy, PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, autism. So that is something that I guess I'd like to see in terms of data. I don't think it would be you guys, but where would we get that data regarding the transiency between charters and public schools and the going back and forth? You don't need to, And finally, this is another question. I got another question.
Is anybody else? All right, go ahead.
Okay, last question. Okay. Back in the day, before everybody was getting free food, kids had to fill out the income-based form. Is that something, and I know we try to encourage people to do that now, but because everyone's getting food, it's kind of redundant. Seems like it could be possible that if we did take a step back, I'm not sure whether all that money would be caught, but would we then maybe look at that and going back to doing these forms if people have to use their card or number, whatever the kids used to have to give a number to the cashier?
We've never stopped trying to collect those forms.
Yeah.
That's always been an annual process, but the number of them has decreased as we became CEP eligible in a building.
Yeah.
And then we've made extraordinary efforts to try to get those forms, even though you're getting breakfast and lunch for free. We'd like you to fill out this form. It's been a hit and miss on whether they return them or not.
But it doesn't matter, right? Because they're getting food regardless. Now,
It
back in
doesn't
the
for
day,
the food, but it does for other portions, because one kind of just sideline piece is, our free and reduced lunch real number may be 65 or 70 or just over 70%. But when you look at the number of applications that get filled out and then they compare that, it shows us at like 50% or 48%, which is a far understatement when then you go to try apply for a grant that has a requirement that you need to be 65% or more free or reduced to be able to participate in this grant award. We get knocked out of the box because the only number we can really show is that application number. So we've tried to make efforts to get those completed. One other piece that I just thought of that I've just recently became aware of is currently with our CEP schools, up until last year, this current year or last year, you had to have a free and reduced lunch population of at least 40% within a building for that building to be considered a CEP eligible. Our buildings, we made all our buildings were fine. In order to have more districts participate in CPE, they lowered that amount from 40%, I think it was this school year, to 25%. So more districts became eligible for CEP as of this year. My understanding, and what I've read a couple different pieces on, is if there is a cut, a change in that, they may change the CEP requirement from 25% back up to 60% in order for that building to be eligible for free meals. In our case, there could be a couple buildings in there that have been totally free and reduced, or totally free, that now may not be if it's 60%. Some of that would be a result of the paperwork that we don't have, but that goes to what I was saying earlier. There might be an impact, but it's not a huge risk because it's only a couple buildings. It's not like the whole district would go from CEP eligible to non-CEP. Might be a building or two, even with the change, that could impact us, but we can handle that.
So kids who were at that income level, even in a building less than 60%, they would still continue to receive the free and reduced?
It's the whole building.
Oh, the whole building.
It's the building average, not the individual within the building. That building would have to be over 60%. So if that building
What if it isn't?
demographic fell to 59%,
Yeah.
then that building would not qualify for CEP,
Even
and we'd go
kids
back to free and reduced, and kids would have to pay. Some kids would have to pay.
Unless they met the income
qualified
requirement. Okay,
under
thank
the
you.
paperwork.
Thank you.
Mr. Margorio?
Thank you, Romeo. On page 8, there might be a little bit of overlap with Tracy's second question, but you pointed out that basically our salaries and benefits are really right in line with inflation, so that's understandable. Is there anything notable going on in the contract services, the tuitions, or the BOCES services that, because as I calculate those changes, they're 6% to 10%. The BOCES services in particular up about 10%. Anything notable in there? And I don't mean for you to go
Couple
into.
comments we can make there, yeah. So BOCES services are up because we're taking more expenditures that had not gone through BOCES. We're running more through them. So it's not necessarily an increase. There is an increase in cost for BOCES, but again, those are aidable back to us. It's the volume of expenses we're putting through them. So things that weren't BOCES aidable in 24, 25 are now BOCES aidable in 25, 26. So that's the bulk of those. Contract services, supplies, materials, it's just inflation. A little bit of a hedge in there for additional costs that are there. Everything has gone up dramatically, and that's what's reflected in this number. Also in their contracts includes utilities, gas and electric. Transportation is a contract that's in there. All those things are up 4, 5, 7%. That's what's built into that number. Tuitions, public charter school, there's more kids going to private parochial, and there's more kids going to charter schools that we anticipate we're going to have to pay those bills. And those per pupil costs tend to go up each year, along with the volume going up, gives us that increase. You're welcome.
Ms. Farmer, Vice President Farmer.
Thank you. So to follow up, as these costs continue to go up and the needs in our public schools continue to go up, and which then in turn the cost per pupil increases, yes?
Yes.
So as we continue to pay and have to fund these charter schools who don't have to provide those more expensive services to the students there, they actually benefit from extra money based on our kids. No, okay, talk to me.
Not entirely. So two things. Charter schools get a per pupil amount, which may go up, 12, 13, 4, whatever that dollar amount. They can spend, they're not bound by the same purchasing rules and all the same things that call it the red tape that we have to go through, right? So they may be able to buy this item for a little bit less than we could, okay, in certain circumstances. On the other side, there are when you're talking about like students with disabilities, some of the other ancillary we provide those services to them. Because their school is housed, some of the schools are in the Greece Central District, we are responsible for providing a lot of those services. So when they get the payment from us, they're not necessarily using it to pay for all the same things that we would have to pay for. So,
Because we pay for that, those services.
correct.
For
That's
their
part of
students.
our cost. Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.01, annual legal notice. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, seconded by Vice President Farmer. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to tax certiorari settlement refund. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Malor, seconded by Mr. Bonnegorio. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to your seeker approval for the playgrounds at Patty Hill, Buckman, Holmes Road, Pine Brook, and English Village. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stencil, second by Mrs. Like. Any comments, questions, concerns on this? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. 5.04, the capital reserve resolution. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Like, second by Vice President Farmer. Any comments, questions, concerns on this? Mr. Bonnegarro.
You know what, I'm getting ahead of myself. Is this, well, I guess I'm not. Guess this comes to you, Romeo? Okay. Just curious, so we've got some various sources for funding the reserve, the new reserve fund. Transfers from other funds, general funds, state aid, appropriations. Do you have an anticipation? So it's ultimately a $50 million goal, but do you have expectations of what funding amount will be going in annually? I'm not going to start out there, I'm assuming.
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
But it would be any potential surplus that we have, we could move some excess funds in the reserves from one reserve to this reserve as well, which would need board approval. That might be an option for us to kind of say we're going to deposit, $5 million a year in there consistently. It could be $3 million one year, 0 the next, 7 1 year. But I think a lot of it, my intention was to start to utilize some of the monies that we have in the reserve funds, especially the work I've been updating the board. We have purposely put those funds in workers' comp and unemployment because they are the most flexible for us to utilize in a different way. And at some point, whether it be next year or the year after that, we would come back to the board and ask for a transfer from one of those or both of those reserves into this reserve to give us enough to at least start a future project in the next 3 or 4 years. But it could come from a variety of sources. It will be primarily reserves and then year-end fund balance.
And the whole point of that is, and I know you have gone through the exercise before, but so that we can take on these bigger projects down the road and not be strapped in any way.
And for just note purposes, we are having, when all those walkthroughs took place with the different teams through the buildings, and we came up with the level up project, there were other requested changes in the buildings that we couldn't fit into level up. We are still having those conceptually designed and conceptually cost estimated to give us a number of what would it take to do all that other work over a 5 or 7 or 8 year period. We'll then give that to our financial advisors, and then they'll come back and give us you're going to need $25 million, $30 million in the capital reserve to make it a zero cost to residents to do a $130 or $140 million project. So the goal would be to get to whatever that number is to make sure that when we get ready to put that project up, it's to zero additional cost for our residents, just as all our projects have been. The other clarification I wanted to make, in case it needed, the 15-year term is to deposit funds into the fund. It's not to expend it. We can expend that within prior to 15 years. We can spend it after 15 years. That restriction is only deposits can only go in for 15 years or up to $50 million, whichever comes first. So we can use that money again for project 20 years from now if we wish. But it will set us up to be able to do the work that needs to be done, given all the changes in the environment and student needs that needs to be done in the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Ms. Lake?
I was fortunate to take Romeo's class in budget, and I'll tell you, it was great to be able to understand this stuff. And I think I could have even answered your question, Mark.
With that, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to a budget status report. It's written information only. Does anybody have any questions? 6.02, anticipated bids. Again, written information. Anybody have any questions? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I somebody move the consent agenda to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Stetzel, seconded by Vice President Farmer. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent agenda? I would just like to thank the Greece Education Foundation. They made donations in the amount of $13,152 to various programs across the district for supplies for language development program, equipment for PE, scooters, parachutes, etc., portable PA system, field day bubble machines, percussion equipment, tumbling mats, microphones and sounds equipment, books for the school vending machine. We're very thankful for our relationship with Greece Education Foundation, what they do. I'd also like to thank the extra classroom funds at Arcadia Middle for their donations, Athena High for their donations, the Odyssey Academy for their donation, and Olympia for their donation. With that, all those in favor of the consent agenda? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 8.01, the elementary and secondary grade reporting timetables. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Millar, second by Mr. Bonagorio. Any comments, questions, concerns on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. And moving on, Ms. Millar, you're up. Yep. Service on the board.
Yeah, okay.
Service on the board.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded by Mr. Stetzel. All those in favor? Good evening, everyone. Thank you. That passes 8-0.